Week 2, Lesson 2. We are still not talking about practical application yet. We are doing some along the way, but we're not talking about budgeting tonight. Just like we started last week, we didn't start with budgeting or how to spend your money. We started with, let's understand that everything belongs to God. And still, we're looking at the heart here tonight because this is where the rubber meets the road in terms of what you really have to deal with before you get a handle on how you spend, how you view, how you understand your money. But before we jump into this, I did want to, periodically throughout this thing, share a little bit about our own journey in this. I don't ever ask Sarah if it's okay. I just do it. I don't mean spending money. I just mean sharing information. But when we first got married, we were stupid. We were 20, first of all, still in college. Our financial troubles started a year before we got married. Yeah, there's that. We started taking out student loans to live on. So I moved out of the dorm a year and a half into school, preparing for the following summer. And so I didn't have a job, and I'm in school, and if you get an apartment, you have to pay for it. I don't know if you know that or not. And so we took out every loan we could. So by the time we did get married, there's halfway through our school, she didn't take out any loans yet, but I had already taken out loans to start living on. And then when we got married, we decided to max out those loans to live on for the next 2.5 years while we finished school. On top of that, so that was the easy one. That one we didn't have to think about. That was no-brainer. We'll just take it out. As soon as we got married, I think it was, like 2 months later, a month later? Well, besides that, you quit your job. We both quit our jobs. Yeah, that was 2 months later. Yeah, you went to get a new job, and I couldn't find one right away, right after we got married. And we bought a car. We had to get a new yellow Xterra because we wanted a yellow Xterra. That it cost more per month than our apartment did. That's where it started for us. We did real good. And so from there, for the next 4 or 5 years, we were upside down on vehicles. We kept trading in. Kept trading in. We'll give you more for your trade-in. Okay, we'll just add it to the next loan. We ended up with a Chevy Aveo that cost $10,000 more than what we bought it for. Yeah. No. We bought it for 12. It cost us 22. Because the loan and everything else that attached to it that we didn't pay off from the previous vehicle. Dumb. Lots of really bad mistakes financially. Yeah. Well, all right. So if you really want to back it all the way up, I'll bring my mom and dad into this. I'm just kidding. I'm not going to do that. We made our own financial mistakes. But there was a lot of that early on. We didn't know any better. Well, let me say, we were both economics and finance majors. Super smart. Right. We had to take accounting. There was 4 accounting classes were part of that. Yeah, for sure. No, we paid. All right, listen, we paid everything. We never got to a point where we weren't able to pay, our monthly bills. We never, we're 30, 60 days behind any of that kind of stuff. We always were able to pay it, but it was, we were basically just paying to get out from under all of it. Credit cards, yeah. Credit cards, student loans were deferred for as long as we possibly could. It was like $65,000 of student loans. Back in 2003 through 2007, that's a lot of money. You know, we maxed out the amount of loans we were allowed to get. So that's how our marriage started. She had a full ride scholarship. She didn't need a thing. No, I lost mine my first semester. That doesn't count. We won't get into that story. That's another story. So bad decisions all around. That's how it started. And it wasn't for 10 years before we really, there was a few years we took a little finance course. We kind of heard about it. We're like, okay. We did it for a few weeks, and then we're right back into all the regular ways of thinking about money. Then we finally got serious about it, and that's when kind of the eyes open moment. We're like, man, we can't keep going this way. We see now that we're not being good stewards of our money. You know, we don't know where it's going, which just this is a bad situation. And so we had to also, add this to it, deal with it together. No, I'm saying that if we would have tried to, if it was just one or the other of us, there was no way it was going to happen. You had to be on the same page. So if you are in this room and you are a married couple, you better be on the same page with all this, or it's going to be rough. We need, especially within marriages, you are together. You are one flesh. That means all of your stuff is one thing. You don't have two different piles. If you have two different piles, you're going to have a lot of problems. You got to be careful with that, because that's not a leaving and cleaving, a one flesh union. One flesh doesn't mean just what you usually think of with one flesh. It means everything is together. You are one. And that includes your finances. So we, from that point, started making the decisions to do things God's way, to start to handle our money in a way that was faithful, and to deal with our own covetousness, to seek to grow in contentment, which is where we are tonight. So let's just jump in here. I shared way too much there at the beginning. Go ahead and turn in your copy of God's Word to Luke chapter 12. We'll start there. You see the 4 different passages of Scripture where we're going to be this evening. So if you want to keep your finger there and find the other places too, that would be great. So tonight we look at one of the most difficult issues in all of this, in financial discipleship, stewardship. And that is the inner battle of contentment versus covetousness. Every one of us feels that tension. Every one of us fights that battle. Some of us are not fighting very well. Most of us in America are usually not even thinking about contentment. But even within the church, that is a difficult battle, as I just mentioned, of our own example there of just not even thinking about trying to do things in a way that's right. Let's just go with what we feel. Our financial problems, though, for some, it's you have some problems because of a low income, but most of the time, more problems are not just because you don't have enough money. It's because you're discontent. Most people don't live under that pressure from money just because they lack it, but because they're always trying to get something else. They're always looking for something more. They're not happy with what they have. And so the Bible clearly addresses this very important issue. Luke chapter 12 is the parable, verse 15 is the verse, but the parable here in verse 13 through 21 is the parable of the rich fool. You track 4 guys, you just started reading these 2 chapters starting on Sunday. And so this is about the guy who's like, hey, I've got all this stuff. I'm going to store, I've got all these crops stored in my barns, but now I've got more to add to it. What am I going to do? Well, I'm going to tear down my small barns. I'm going to build bigger barns so that I can store more stuff in it. Verse 19, he says, I will say to my soul, soul, you have ample goods laid up for many years. Relax, eat, drink, be merry. But God said to him, fool, this night your soul is required of you. And the things you have prepared, whose will they be? So is the one who lays up treasure for himself and is not rich towards God. The verse here in verse 15 says, take care. Before Jesus shares this parable, he says, take care and be on your guard against all covetousness. For one's life does not consist in the abundance of his possessions. Jesus says be on guard. When Jesus says you need to be on guard, this is something you need to pay attention to. Be on guard. This is serious language, and it comes out of the mouth of Jesus himself, so this is a serious lesson we need to seriously learn. Covetousness, the desire for more, the desire for something else, the desire for something that I don't have, that I want, is not harmless. It's spiritual danger. Take care. Be on your guard against all covetousness. Covetousness is that endless desire for more. It is the assumption that you will be satisfied if you get the next blank. Whatever it is. If I get this, I'll be satisfied. If I have this, I'll be satisfied. If I am able to go there, I'll be satisfied. But it never ends. The satisfaction fades. Pleasures don't continue on. The joy doesn't hold in that next thing or the next thing or the next thing. And Jesus says here that life does not consist in abundance of possessions. In other words, your life is not measured by what you have. Your life is not measured by what you own. The reason why that's so difficult for us is our culture says the exact opposite. We live in a world that tells us that we are defined by what we have, by what we wear, by what we drive, by what we can afford, by what lifestyle we want to put out there, that we want to show to the world. But Jesus says here, your life is not defined by your possessions. Your life is not built on what you have. He says, take care. Be on your guard. You see, the parable ends with the death of that rich fool. And guess what you can't take with you when you die? All that stuff. Flip over to 1 Timothy chapter 6. This particular passage is one you will recognize. This is Paul telling his young protege Timothy. He's giving him some final words here at the end of his letter. Fight the good fight of the faith, that section there. But within that, but right before that, he tells him, well, he warns him of false teachers. Look out for these people. Because they think that godliness is a means of gain. And beginning in verse 6, he says, but godliness with contentment is great gain. For we brought nothing into the world, and we cannot take anything out of the world. But if we have food and clothing, with these we will be content. But those who desire to be rich fall into temptation, into a snare, into many senseless and harmful desires that plunge people into ruin and destruction. For the love of money is a root of all kinds of evil. It is through this craving that some have wandered away from the faith and pierced themselves with many pangs. It says, but godliness with contentment is great gain. You see, covetousness is always that endless desire for gaining more, but it's never satisfied. And what he says is godliness with contentment is great gain. It does satisfy. There is gain there. It's not empty. That's where true treasure is. Godliness with contentment. Contentment is gain, not an endless cycle of trying to acquire more and more and more. Not comparing yourselves with others, not envy. It's contentment is great gain. Paul goes on to say in these verses that we brought nothing into this world and we can take nothing out. That ought to take us down a peg or two. Much of what we live for will be left behind. What's the old saying? There's no trailers, no U-Hauls behind the hearse. Yeah, you can't take it with you. Again, and this isn't just a good old saying. This is what Jesus just said in the parable in Luke chapter 12 of the rich fool. Who's going to get your stuff? Where's all that stuff going to go now? Your life is required of you tonight. Yeah, that's great. Then he warns, those who desire to be rich fall into temptation. Let's hold on. Now let me be careful here. We don't want to fall into the trap on either side. This also does not mean that if you are rich, you're sinning. Or that if you're rich, you are only tempted all the time. Or you're in a snare if you are rich. No. The desire. Those who desire to be rich, they're living their life like we just talked about, covetousness, a constant desire for more. I'm never satisfied. That desire to be rich. Those who do that fall into temptation, into a snare. So what does that look like? What does it look like? I'm asking you. Participation. A car you can't afford? The desire to be rich, fall into temptation, into a snare. What else could that look like? What other kind of temptation, what other snares could somebody fall into that were desired to be rich? Cheating on your taxes, dishonest work, stealing, jealousy, workaholic. Yeah, neglecting your family so that you can earn more money.
Relationship.
Yeah.
Sugar daddy.
Sugar daddy. Sugar mama. Yeah. Making those kinds of decisions based on, are they going to fulfill me? Are they going to give me the things that I want? I want a new purse every week. I got to have that. I know some people like that, so I'm not saying that randomly. Did somebody say something? You said something. Words came out of your mouth.
My mouth did not
Oh, Gracie's mouth. Somebody over there. What'd you say?
You said first and we all
Oh, Gracie, what'd you say? Mom. That's funny. Yeah, you understand what this looks like. So we're not just, this isn't just abstract. We get it. If you desire to be rich, you desire money, you desire that to look like that or to live like that, and that's where all your attention goes, you fall into all kinds of temptations. You're willing to lie a little. You're willing to cheat a little. You're willing to do a little bit just to get that extra stuff. And then you're in a snare. And of course, the verse that everybody misquotes, for the love of money. Money is not the root of all evil. It's the love of money is the root of all kinds of evils. You see all the different ways that can play itself out in our lives. It's that consuming desire for riches that becomes a snare to us. The love of money is a root of all kinds of evil. Jump over to Hebrews chapter 13. In chapter 13 of Hebrews, the author is talking here about letting brotherly love continue. It's kind of coming to the end of his letter, and there's sort of at the end of most of the letters, there's kind of this last, I'm just going to throw a whole bunch of things at you all at one time. They're connected, but they're like, you can individually take them out here and really talk about them. So he starts with let brotherly love continue. Don't neglect to show hospitality. Go to the prisons, all that kind of stuff. Let marriage be held in honor. Keep your life, and then verse 5, keep your life free from the love of money and be content with what you have. For he has said, I will never leave you nor forsake you. This is a weird verse. It's almost like two verses in one. It seems like two disconnected sort of statements. He says, keep your life free from the love of money and be content with what you have. Okay, I get that. Stand alone on its own. For he has said, I will never leave you nor forsake you. I'm like, well, that kind of reminds me of the go into all the world and make disciples, and that I'm with you always. And it's like, it seems like this is disconnect, but no, that's exactly what we need. The verse ties contentment together with the presence of God. Why can we be content? Because God is with us. Always. So contentment is not pretending that there's not hardships. That, or even worse, it's not pretending that hardships are actually easy. No, things are going great. No, things are hard. Contentment is not pretending. Contentment is not laziness. It's not just going, who cares? Contentment is a settled confidence that God is enough, and that obedience is better than an endless craving for more. I think that when I use the word covetousness in our modern world today, most people don't really, we can define it, we can say what the word means, but most people don't see it. It's just kind of the world we live in. It's the air we breathe. It's all around us. It's normal life. Marketing and advertising, that's all it is. It's telling you there's something more that you should have and you don't have it. Even the so-called good things that are promoted or advertised or marketed. Well, you should have this particular one. This one's better. It's everywhere. Get on social media. It's worse there. Because then you're not just getting it from ads and marketing, you're getting it from other people too. Hey, look what I got. You should have this. We're constantly comparing different things. Are comparing ourselves with others. We're comparing what we have with what other people have. You see what they have. And then all of a sudden, we see what God gave us and we go, that's not quite as good as that one. Why is theirs bigger than mine? I love Diet Dr. Pepper. And I'd be happy with the Diet Dr. Pepper can sitting right here. But if I saw you with a 44-ounce Route 44, I'd be like, why do you have a Route 44 and I only have a 12-ounce can? That ain't right. Covetousness. That's the air we breathe. That's how we live. Comparison is dangerous. We see what others have, we see what's out there, and we think what God has given us is insignificant. Or, even worse, that the way He has blessed us seem like a burden rather than a blessing. You recall the famous, not parable, but quote, comparison is the thief of joy. And I think that finds some biblical roots here. How do you have joy in Christ if you think you don't have enough? So many of the financial decisions that we make then are not necessarily made from an actual need or from wisdom or stewardship, but from envy. We need that language. We say, we need a bigger house. We need a nicer car. We need to keep up with what so-and-so's got. None of those are needs. I don't know if you know that. Those are wants, those are desires, those are covetous sorts of phrases. It reveals to us
Sometimes you might need a car.
a nicer car.
No.
That's what I said.
Okay. Sometimes you might need
Yes.
a car. And how do we okay it? How do we
I didn't say not have. Here's what I'm getting at. We're talking about comparing what we have with others, or what we have versus what we want. Is the need actually a need, or is the need just because you want that thing because I'm not happy with what I've got? Those are two completely different situations. We need a nicer car. Not we need a car. If you need a car because you need a job, you need to go and do work, that's one thing. But you have a car, you don't like that it's blue, or you don't like that it's 10 years old, or you don't like that it's, the blinker doesn't work anymore. Instead of going to fix it, what does most people do? Trade it in. Trade it in. I'll get a new one. I didn't like this one anyway. See, most of
What if you have the money and you want to not?
It's a good question. It depends. It depends, and this is what all of this is about. I'm not giving you an answer that fits for everybody, because what I'm saying is, if you see somebody who has a nice car, you have no idea if the heart behind them having that nice car is one that honors the Lord, or if they just have that because they're trying to be better than what somebody else is. It all comes down to your heart, to your motivation. Are you coveting this thing? Or are you content with what you have, and God has given you this opportunity to provide for something that you want to get, and there's no other ulterior motive. But again, unfortunately, we don't try even to discern it. We don't even try to think, am I being covetous or not? Am I being envious or not? We just, because it's so much a part of our culture, we think, well, that's what everybody else is doing. That's how it's supposed to go. When you want something new, you go get it. Well, do you need it? Well, I don't know. You're just supposed to go get it, aren't you? No. We have to start questioning our motivation behind it. That's ultimately what all this comes down to. Often, here what I'm getting at, and we can argue, individual issues and individual, situations. And I don't mean argue as in like fight over it. I just mean we could bring up individual issues. But on the whole, like 99% of the people that make decisions and the things that I'm talking about are just done. Like, well, yeah, what if you need a car? Well, yeah, there is that. But 99% of the people that buy a new car didn't need a new car. And that's who I'm talking to in here. You people. Carol.
Your car is like newer than 2000, isn't it?
Flip over to Philippians. We got to keep going here.
I don't know. I'm not sure.
Again, if you're looking at somebody else, that's not what I mean. But again, what we're revealing here is when we're comparing the decision we need to make on what somebody else has. That's a wrong way to make a decision. That is covetousness. Contentment is making those decisions between you and God. Forget what everybody else has. Forget what everybody else is doing. What God has stewarded you with. Is it right? Is it good? Can you love Him and love others? Can you do it with the right motive? If yes is the answer, then go for it. But if no is the answer, and most of the time probably no is the answer nowadays in our culture, then the answer is no. You got to learn how to say no to yourself. Luke 9:23. If anyone would come after me, let him deny himself, take up his cross daily, and follow me. A life of discipleship, a life of Christ following, is a life of self-denial. I'm not saying you have to deny yourself all the pleasures of the world, that you can't have anything nice. What I'm saying is most of the things that you want to have, you should probably deny yourself. Because it's not going to be good for you financially, spiritually, relationally, whatever. You have to learn how to examine your motives, examine your desires, examine your passions, and determine whether or not those are godly or selfish. Philippians 4:11 through 13. Listen to Paul. I love this. I preached through Philippians, our first year here. So if you were here, you may recall this. But if you weren't, I love Philippians. I love Paul's example here to us. I'm going to start in 10, just at the beginning of that passage. I rejoiced in the Lord greatly that now at length you've revived your concern for me. You were indeed concerned for me, but you had no opportunity. The Philippians were looking out for him. But he says here, not that I'm speaking of being in need, for I have learned in whatever situation I am to be content. I know how to be brought low, and I know how to abound. You see, contentment is not just learning how to be poor. It's learning how to be content whether you are poor or rich, regardless of what you have. I know how to be brought low, and I know how to abound. In any and every circumstance, I have learned the secret of facing plenty and hunger. Facing plenty, as if that's like a hard issue. God, I got to face having too much. Can you imagine? That's hard to imagine because we have been so changed by our culture to not think that way. That's what you're supposed to want. Facing plenty is what you're supposed to go after. I've learned the secret of facing plenty and hunger, abundance and need. I can do all things through Him who strengthens me. That's where that verse comes into real context. It's not, I can do anything I put my mind to. It's no matter the circumstance, I can be content in it. God is with me. Whether I have nothing or I have everything, I am the Lord's, and all that I have is His. And so it will be used for Him. I have learned how to face hunger, face plenty, face abundance, face need. All these kinds of situations. You have to learn. Listen to what he says. I have learned the secret. It's not a secret. I hope you get that. But he is saying it's something you have to learn. Contentment doesn't come to us naturally. It doesn't come to us naturally regardless of the culture we live in, America in 2026. If we lived in Egypt in 6 BC, it's the same thing. You still have to learn these things. He says, I have learned in whatever situation I am to be content. Contentment is a learned behavior. We don't come by it naturally because we are born sinners, selfish, prideful, wanting to live by our desires, the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life. You have to learn to be content. If you've not learned to be content, then you're not content yet. Some people say, well, I'm content. Have you learned to be content? Well, no. What does that look like? That looks like actually examining your life and looking at what you spend and looking at where you spend your time and looking at what you do. Not just assuming you're content because you have everything you want. That's not contentment. Being happy with what you have is not contentment. If that's what you think contentment is, that's the world's view of contentment. To be happy with what you have. No, to be content is to be happy in God, regardless of what you have. Which means some of you need to get rid of some stuff. Because you haven't learned to be content yet. But Paul learned it. Or maybe you're like, man, I started out, at the bottom, now I'm here. And you're thinking, well, I'm content because I didn't have anything, but now I do. You haven't learned to be content here yet. Contentment is not based on your circumstances. It's based on God's providence in your life. It's based on His presence in your life. It is cultivated in your life as you understand that God is in control. Paul learned it. And abundance and hunger, plenty and need does not depend on our circumstances. It depends on Christ. So there's some questions we need to ask ourselves. We need to examine ourselves. I'm not going to ask you again to necessarily say anything out loud here, but as you think about this idea for your own life, where does discontentment seem to show up the most? What is it in your life that you go, you know what, if I just had this, I'd be all right? If that answer is not God, there's a problem. Do you spend emotionally?
No.
You eat emotionally? Okay, that's fair. Some people say no, but then when that gun comes on sale, and you're like, you know what? Now's the time. Yes, we can say no at times. We should be able to get to that point where we learn to be content and be able to spend without being an emotional spend. But we all fall into that trap. Do you compare yourself with others? Do you assume that having more money would fix your heart, that would make you happy? Your homework this week. You got to get personal with yourself. Write down 3 financial fears and 3 financial goals. And as you do that, mark each one of them as whether or not it's mostly shaped by faith, wisdom, fear, pride, envy, or comparison. You actually need to look at these things. Examine these things. One practical thing to begin to practice this week. For some of you, there is a trigger. Well, not for some of you, for all of you. There's a trigger in your life where you go to this thing, you go to the TV, you go to your phone, you go to, where you drive by every day, whatever it is. And something triggers a comparison. You go, You drive by the lot every day on purpose just to see those new trucks. You look at that ad on your phone that pops up and, man, I'd like to have that nice new purse. Whatever it is, all of us have those. Here is the homework for this week. Choose one of those triggers to avoid for the next 7 days. I like driving past that lot every day. We'll go around it. Go the other way. Whoa. That'll take more time. Do you really want to deal with your problem of comparison? Or are you okay with it? Well, that means I have to put down my phone while I'm sitting around waiting for my son at school or at practice. Well, do you really want to deal with this comparison issue you have, this covetousness issue you have? Or you just want to be okay with it? We'll talk about it, we'll laugh about it, and then we'll just forget about it. But then take a positive step and write down one prayer of thanksgiving for God's present provisions. It's not all negative here. We're not all just going, all right, we got to get all this stuff out of our life. We also need to be thankful. We need to be grateful. We need to thank the Lord. That's part of being content is, again, thank you, Lord, that I have you. Thank you, Lord, for what you have given me. Thank you for my family. Thank you for this. Thank you for that. Whatever it is, write it down. And thank the Lord for it. A content heart in the area of finances in particular, which is, again, the focus of our attention, can be the heart of contentment is a great financial blessing. There is great gain. A man with much and no contentment is a poor man. A man with nothing and contentment is rich in a way that the rest of the world just can't understand. I'm going to say something to you here, and then we'll be done. You don't need everything you want. You need grace to be faithful and content with what God has given you. Amen?